you so much for being here. Welcome to the Stewardship Network's monthly webcast for February 2024. We are so excited to have the Bug Chicks here today. But first of all, I would like to tell you a little bit more about the Stewardship Network. So about us, the Stewardship Network is a 501c3 nonprofit organization with an award-winning 20-year history. We are now serving 20 plus place-based TSN member communities from the Great Lakes to the Pacific Ocean. And our free TSN webcasts happen the second Wednesday of each month. Our mission is to connect, equip, and mobilize people and organizations to care for land and water in their communities. We do this through our TSN member communities. We make collaborative ecological stewardship accessible to all. We equip by removing hurdles for TSN member communities so they can pour thousands of annual work hours into their ecosystems. And we connect folks. We connect the specialized knowledge we've collected from and for our TSN member communities, and we share it as widely as possible. You may be familiar with one way that we connect folks to the knowledge and resources that we are so grateful to be exposed to through our member communities and through our network in these monthly webcasts. But we also recently had a really amazing Connect opportunity that I'd like to talk with you more about. So the Stewardship Network Conference was back in person for the first time in, oh my gosh, I think it was 3 years that we did virtual conferences, if I'm not mistaken. But in January 29th and 30th, it was so amazing to be back at the Kellogg Center in East Lansing, Michigan. And the turnout was incredible. It was at pre-pandemic levels. We had no idea what to expect. Were folks going to be interested in coming back in person? Were we going to be nervous about all of the logistics and all the protocols and all of those things? And it was such a warm and inviting and exciting atmosphere. We got a lot of really great feedback from folks that were so happy to be back in person, amazing networking opportunities, really amazing and insightful and impactful keynote speakers. So we just wanted to take a moment to say thank you all so very much for being a part of the conference. And we are so excited to be back in 2025. And we had one more exciting little part about the conference this year, which is that we brought the Gloves for Good program to the conference officially for the first time. TSN Gloves meets TSN Conference. We were completely out of all of our gloves by noon on day 2 of the conference. And we distributed 2,365 pairs in all, which is pretty incredible. If you're new to the program, we'd actually like to tell you a little bit more about the Gloves for Good program. Oh, there you go, the empty boxes. So we distribute lightly used gloves, great for stewardship, diverted from waste and put to work, free for you. So all you need to do is go to stewardshipnetwork.org/gloves, make your request with our easy online form, and then we launder, pair, pack, and distribute them for you. You can either come to the office and pick them up yourself in Ann Arbor, or if you need to get them shipped, we just ask that you pay for shipping. And this program has started as just a side project, but it's hard to even call it that anymore because it's so incredible the impact that we've been able to make, and we've met so many great partners through this program. And I want to talk a little bit more about that. So between the conference and recent orders, we are now up to 23,711 pairs of gloves distributed. That is 1,731 pounds of waste diverted from landfills and 2.15 metric tons of CO2 saved from these gloves. That also includes $36,471 saved for amazing stewards on the ground that are able to utilize these work gloves. Oh my gosh, that was one of my favorite drop-offs over there on the left-hand side. But yeah, just want to thank you all for the support of the program. It's really been incredible. And please do visit stewardshipnetwork.org/gloves if you would like to get your own. So without further ado, I would love to introduce Kristie Reddick and Jessica Honaker, the Bug Chicks, and their presentation today, Not So Different, Using Bugs to Fight Apathy and Inspire Empathy. And with that, I would like to invite our speakers onto the stage.
Hi.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Great. So you can feel free to take it away.
Yeah, I think we will. So So before we get started with our slides, which we're going to share here in just a second, Jessica and I love to have a little bit of interaction. We're people. So a little bit of interaction in the chat right now. We have a question, and this is how we start almost all of our workshops. If we're working with students, with teachers, it doesn't matter, even if we're just talking to people on the street. One of the questions that we ask is, how do you feel about bugs? And by bugs, I mean arthropods. And by arthropods, I mean anything with 6 or more jointed legs and exoskeleton. So just let us know in the chat how you feel about bugs.
Yeah, and we appreciate honesty. Like if it's an on the fence answer or skewing towards negative, we want to hear that too. Don't hold back on our account.
Yeah, please. It just helps us figure it out. Find them interesting.
Love them except mosquitoes and ticks.
Don't want them crawling on me. Like them.
Bugs are beautiful.
Important but can be dangerous. Bugs are friend shaped. My partner disagrees. That's understandable.
Good.
Prefer them as a specimen. Interesting.
Okay.
Benthic river bugs. Oh,
like them until they're on me. Okay.
Terrified of bugs. Now I work with them in my career. You can't live without having to deal with them. Nicole, brilliant. Essential. Okay.
Nice. Thanks, everybody.
Beautiful. This is, bugs are rad except mosquitoes, ticks, cockroaches. Okay. Yes, this is perfect. This is a perfect smattering of what happens when we ask people, how do you feel about bugs? And you'll notice that we said, how do you feel about bugs? We didn't say, what do you think about bugs? Because when you ask what people think, they will sometimes give you facts. And if you ask how people feel, they will give sort of truly authentic responses. And especially if we give that caveat of, we really want to know how you feel. Like you don't have to sugarcoat anything.
Yeah. And often those two answers are very different, what they think and what they feel.
Yes. So with that being said, you can see a lot of different responses here. For the most part, they're very positive responses. And then you have some of these things where you can feel this tug of, well, I like bugs. I understand that they're important. There are some of them I don't like. I like some of them, but not others. And if we really drilled down into asking questions, like if someone had said in the chat, I don't like bugs. I hate them. They scare me. If they crawl on me, I freak out, which is a very normal response that we get. We love to kind of drill into that a little bit and go, okay, great. So like ladybugs, totally gross. And they go, oh, well, ladybugs are okay. Or we go, butterflies, absolutely terrifying. And they go, well, butterflies are okay. So there's this spectrum about how people feel about bugs, and it's because bugs are so diverse. There's so many different kinds of arthropods that to just say that you feel sort of one blanket way about them doesn't really do it justice. So we're going to get into the work that we do and our talk. And forgive me if my screen share is a little off. Hold on. I know you saw my text. It's fine. Everything's fine. I'm over it. Jessica, don't yell at me.
A little behind the scenes look for all of our TSN friends.
That's good. Everything's fine. Okay. So my name's Kristie Reddick.
I'm Jessica Honaker.
And we are the Bug Chicks, and we teach about the amazing world of arthropods. Jessica and I met in grad school. We have been working together for just over 15 years.
16 years, yeah.
And we started off doing research in graduate school. We got our master's degrees at Texas A&M University, and we studied very different things when we first met. We met in an insect photography class that neither of our professors wanted us to take. They thought it was going to be a waste of time.
Yeah.
But we showed them, didn't we, Jessica? Now with our
we
careers.
Did.
So for those of you who answered that some bugs are terrifying or some things you don't like, I used to be terrified of bugs. I used to be sort of cry for my dad in the middle of the night, especially about spiders, particularly about spiders. And I mean, I was paralyzed in fear in some ways. And also the way that my parents reacted to my fear further fed my fear.
Mhm.
And my mother was very afraid that I was going to get bitten by any kind of animal. And so fear is something that is contagious and can impact you even if you don't have the fear. If you are looking to a role model or a parent or a mentor to see how to behave in a certain situation, fear can really shape, other people's fear can shape you. And I think in lots of ways it shaped me. And then after having a degree in theater and shifting to realizing that my big dream was to study animals in Africa. And so when I was 21, I went on a study abroad program to study large mammals in East Africa. And I was like living my dream. I ran into this animal. Does anybody know what this is?
Feel free to drop that in the chat.
And Jess, I'm going to let you let me know if anybody
Yeah.
says it in the chat, because I can't see as I'm managing this. Does anybody know what this is?
Oh, yeah. We got a couple people.
Okay.
It
These
is
are
camel
called,
spider.
it is camel spider, also called
Mhm.
solifuge arachnids. It
Mhm.
looks like it has 10 legs. Can you see my cursor, Jess?
Yes.
Okay, so when I first saw one, I did a quick count and I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I immediately thought I discovered a new kind of animal. I was like naming it after myself. I wasn't really a scientist yet. I didn't know the protocol. But I fell in love with this animal and I vowed that I would go back for graduate school and study them. And that's what I did. And I got the opportunity to name and describe a new species from East Africa. And I got to do distribution maps and travel all over the country. I bought a truck on a credit card, which I do not recommend. And this is where Jessica really comes into my life in a big way, because we met in grad school and I wanted someone to film my work in Kenya. And I knew that being from the theater, that I wanted to teach about bugs. That was really the bent for me. I really wanted to help people get over their fear of bugs the way that I had. And Jessica said yes. And we spent 6 months together in a 2-person tent in East Africa. And you either come out of that mortal enemies or besties. And we went the besties route. So that's kind of how Jessica and I got our start. But Jessica is an entomologist in her own right.
Yeah. So I study agricultural pests, and specifically this little bug. So this is a microscope shot of a black margined aphid. And my research was all about how the presence of their honeydew affects pecan agro ecosystems. And so I would go out day after day in orchards in Texas and collect aphid honeydew. That's basically aphid pea. And I would get the volumes and I would figure out how much sugar was in it and how much sugar was being pulled from the tree. And through that, I could figure out if farmers were losing money if they sprayed versus if they just left the bugs alone. And it turns out that farmers were overspraying by tens of thousands of dollars every year, and it wasn't actually controlling the aphid populations. And so they could leave the aphids and not spray them, or let them get to higher thresholds, save money on pesticides, and also like gain yield in their crops. So we were able to work with farmers to reduce their pesticide use in the state of Texas. And so that was sort of like my bent was how do you reduce pesticide, and how do you have a better grasp on how these animals are affecting the ecosystems that they live in. But then I met Kristie, and I went to Kenya with Kristie, and I thought, am I going to do extension for my life? I think I really like this teaching.
Yeah, so we went from like making scientific contributions to this. And honestly, I'm not sad about it. I'm really stoked. So we started our career by God, it's so weird to say the word career when we're looking at a picture of us like in giant felt walking stick costumes. And what you're not seeing in this picture is that we were making mating videos, courtship and mating ritual videos for these videos that we were making for Texas A&M University. And this is right after I had launched myself off of a trampoline onto Jessica's back because the male rides the back of the female and wards off other males. And we're doing this like in a park, in a public park. This was long before people used to do stuff on TikTok. Now it's like kind of normal to see people filming themselves, but back then it wasn't. So we started our career by making videos, and we were recruiting people in entomology. We were helping different schools recruit people to get into entomology, but we were also making videos for the U.S. Forest Service for their Pollinator Live programs. And we were just making a whole bunch of videos in the very beginning. But when we moved out west, we had to kind of shift up our model a little bit. And in order to make money as a small business, we thought, let's teach these bug workshops. I had taught a ton earlier before I met Jess. And I said, look, we'll just go into classrooms and we'll teach workshops with students. And so for the next, I don't know, 10 years, the work that we did teaching students, working with teachers, and being really up close and personal with people's actual feelings about bugs has really shaped the philosophy of how we move through the world now and the work that we are currently doing.
Yeah. And we want to, so Kristie mentioned earlier that we teach about this awesome world of arthropods, right? We're entomologists, that makes sense. But our specialty is the integration of that science with social and emotional learning concepts. And that includes stuff like, you know, empowerment and empathy and like growth mindset. And these are the things that we've realized really, really works for the kind of teaching that we do, is getting people in touch with their emotions in these animals.
And so here's how we start our workshops, right? We'll start with the question that we sort of asked originally. How do you feel about bugs? You'll get a lot of this, and I hate them. And we never shut down any words. I think this is really important when you're teaching students. And I don't know how many of you are teachers, but from the looks of where people are logging in, I'm sure that a lot of you at nature centers or at extension centers or in forestry, you're working with people all the time. And because, as someone mentioned in the chat, bugs are everywhere and you can't get away from them. You can't get around it. That's my dog. He's adorable. You can't get away from it and around it. You sort of have to work with the system. You know, the bugs are a thing where you really have to work with it. And so we'll get words like creepy, gross, disgusting, interesting, adorable, pretty,
terrifying,
ugly, terrifying. We'll get all of these words and we never shut down a word unless the word is absolutely like completely out of pocket. We don't shut down a real word of how someone is feeling about these animals, because really when we go in, we're a special guest in a classroom, or if students come to us for a field trip, it's like a special thing that these students get to do. And so often students don't get to feel truly heard and truly seen. And that is something that can be quite powerful. So in an hour, one of our kind of guarantees or our promises that we make to the students is, by the end of this hour, you don't have to love bugs. That's fine. You don't have to study bugs. Like, you don't have to want to grow up to be an entomologist. But by the end of this hour, we're going to teach you the power of reframing how you talk about things and how you see things in order to have a more positive outlook and to feel capable. So we really use bugs to help people feel capable of anything. And that sounds like a big, broad ask, but that's the whole point of a vision statement, right? Is to have this big, almost impossible sort of goal that you walk through the world with, is I want to use bugs to help people all over the world feel capable of anything. Because when you feel capable, you feel like you have choices. When you feel capable, you feel that you have the ability to try new things, to reinvent yourself, to actually be yourself. Feeling capable is a very powerful way to sit as a student, to walk into a room as a teacher, to be a parent, to be part of a community. And of course, for the work that you are doing as stewards of nature, people need to feel capable of going out into the wilderness or out into nature or planting a tree or planting a pollinator garden.
Making a difference.
Making a difference. You need to feel capable of making a difference. And we really think that bugs are the way to do that, partially because you cannot feel neutral about bugs. And whenever anyone says, meh, if we get sort of an apathy response, oh, it's my favorite response. That's my
Figure out
favorite
exactly
response
how
to
they
get.
feel.
Because it's not quite true, right? Maybe it is this thing where you think, oh, I like some of them and I don't like others, and so it cancels it out. Like you think it's sort of a neutrality, but it's not a neutrality. We just need to get a little bit more specific with what we're asking. So I'm gonna go back into this and show you some of the things here. So one of the things that we get to do that we really love is we get to do 2 excursions throughout the year that have really changed the game for us. One of them is the Jason learning expeditions that we do. And we sometimes bring students and teachers from all over the country down to the Amazon rainforest. Or like last year, we went to Costa Rica. This year, we're going to Tucson. We're going to the Sky Islands and the Madeira Canyon. And honestly, we could do it in your backyard. We could do it in my backyard. It doesn't have to be a big excursion somewhere. The whole joy of using bugs as a vehicle or as a model system is that they're everywhere and we could do it on a city street. And if you give us a kid and a bug, or a person and a bug, or an adult and a bug, and you walk through a scaffolding technique of how to get over fear, all of you are able to do this with someone that you might be working with out in the field. If you're out cleaning up trash, or if you're out in a watershed, these are things that you're able to do too. And so we'll walk you through some of the normal models that we use.
Yeah.
So here you'll see that we're holding quite a large tarantula, and we're helping some teachers get over their fears. You can see on their faces that there's some apprehension happening. But one of the things that we do is we do what's called scaffolding, where you will ask someone to look at the bug first and foremost. And we work on an I can, I will, I am, I'll try. Instead of I can't, I won't, I don't, I'm not. So just shifting words from negative to positive, even if you're doing the same thing. Like if I say, would you like to, you want to touch it? They go, oh, I'm not going to touch it. I don't want to touch it. Great. Instead of saying, I don't want to touch it, can you say, I will look at it? It's the same, you're doing the same thing, but it's a totally different attitudinal response. And it really does shift the way students, especially in a classroom, engage with educational systems.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's helpful too, because students are able to set boundaries for themselves. And so they feel empowered in their own education to like have an experience or not. And then once they have that positive experience of being able to look, you can kind of push the envelope a little bit and then move to the next level of scaffolding, where it's like, well, if you don't want to hold, if you'd rather look, how about now we try and pet? Are you comfortable with that? Right. And then the student can then choose to take that step or choose to just look again and end on success.
Yeah, ending on success, I think, is one of the most important things that we do. And so the scaffold basically goes, look at it, touch it, hold it with me, like put your hand under mine, hold it yourself. And if you're not loving that, we go back to the last step where you were loving it again, and you end on success, right? So after tens of thousands of teaching encounters with students and teachers all over the country, all over the world, because we also get to go to the Amazon rainforest with the Morpho Institute, which is an incredible organization where they bring teachers down to the Amazon. We do a teacher training program of professional development with community aspects of the Maihuna community who live in northeastern Peru. And it's just a beautiful blending of cultures and teaching and learning. And then those teachers go back and are empowered to make changes in their own communities based on what they learned in the Amazon rainforest. So based on all of this teaching that we have done, we sort of realized that bugs are the best way to engage students, partially because we're super enthusiastic about them. If you're super enthusiastic about something, say you're really into moss. Say you are a moss dork and like you see different kinds of moss and you're just like, moss. You're so excited about it. That passion, we call it joy-enthusiasm, that is the driver for anything that you can do to get people into this, to get people into being a steward of nature. Whatever you are excited about, if it's birds, if it's dirt, if it's bugs, if it's trees, if it's clearing up waste from watersheds, whatever the thing is that lights you up like a Christmas tree, that is also as contagious as fear is.
Yeah.
So for us, it's bugs. We're biased. We think the bugs are the best way to get people to connect and to get people talking about themselves and to connect with nature. But I really do think that whatever your thing is that really lights you up, showing that enthusiasm for it will be one of the best tools that you have at your disposal. So after many, 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 many years and many, 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 many teachings, we realized that our approach to shift the learning culture is we need to move apathy to empathy. We need to move disillusionment to engagement, and we need to move from being self-focused to community-focused. And if we boil that down even further, it's bugs to self, self to self, and self to others. And what we did is we created a curriculum for teachers and for nature centers and for it's being used in lots of different ways. But at the end of the day, it is a program that helps foster empathy for ourselves, others, and the natural world. Because I think the biggest, I should probably stop sharing for this because this is intense what I'm about to say, and I need to say it to your face. The biggest barrier that we are all going to be facing, I don't think, is climate change. I don't think is plastics. I don't think it's habitat loss. I don't think it's any of these big, large threats that are real. I think it is apathy. I think apathy is the biggest threat that we are all going to be fighting against, because we're never going to get people to get out and care and do things and be active and take action and be stewards and conserve what is here and love what is here in order to preserve it if we can't cut through the apathy. And students are really struggling right now because they're growing up in a time that we didn't grow up in. We didn't grow up with the addictive nature of the technology that we have right now. And unless you are already sort of clicked into a family system or to a community system where getting outside is normal and getting outside is safe and accessible for you, then the apathy is going to be the thing that we have to break through to even get people to get outside. So that's the reason why we created this curriculum. So I'm gonna show you one thing real fast. So it's called Different, and it is social emotional learning plus STEM arthropod edition. And basically it's 10 videos that we made plus self-reflection questions plus PowerPoints and a group discussion and a final project and an assessment. And then the final project's really cool because this is the stewardship piece. And I didn't even think about it, Jess, as being a stewardship piece, but that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it fits right in.
It fits beautifully. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's really cool because, you know, these 10 videos sort of encompass different survival strategies and biologies of arthropods, right? But they also correspond to these different social emotional concepts as well. And then at the end with this project, students can choose the concept that speaks to them the most. And then they pick a community to act on. And then they basically build a project that sort of ties those things together. So maybe it's an empathy project for their sports team, and maybe it ties in with, you know, like roadside cleanup or planting a community garden or something like that. And yeah, it's really cool. It's a really cool project that they can do.
It's called a different action.
Yeah.
And they choose an action like empathy or gratitude or resilience or
Mhm.
any of these, basically these human skills that we all need that are
Yeah.
actually muscles that we need to exercise because they're really actions to take. Gratitude is a practice and it can be transformative for all people. There's lots of science about gratitude and lots of science about empathy. And so we tried to combine it with bugs, and bugs are the hook because bugs are interesting and bugs are cool. So here's an example. We have one called Color Without Pigment. And this is where we teach about the difference between pigment as a color and a coloration called structural color. And I'm actually going to switch things up here for a second. I want to show you. We have a microscope and I want to show you. So this picture right here, these are these little tree structures on a butterfly wing. This is a blue morpho wing. And basically light comes in and it bounces around and it is refracted and bounced out as the colors blue, indigo, violet, right? So instead of pigment where color is absorbed, this is color that is refracted, almost like tiny prisms on a butterfly's
Mhm.
wing, or like on this beetle earring that I have. That's a shiny. So that shine won't ever fade because it is the actual color of that wing is sort of this gray, right? But the color that we perceive is actually this greenish yellow blue, or on this animal, this blue. So I
Yeah.
need to
It's all a
stop
trick of the
sharing
light.
here. It's so incredible. I'm going to show you on my microscope really fast. So you'll see, here's my fingers. Here's a microscope. So I'm going to put this blue morpho wing underneath the microscope and just clear it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And
So you can see on that wing all of those little teeny tiny squares. Every one of those scales, that's what the squares are. Every one of those scales has millions of those little microstructure tree looking things that you saw on the earlier slide. And you can even see how the light refracts out differently under the microscope, even in that small area that she's showing, the dark blue and the light blue.
And then as I flip it around, you can see that these are actually pigment. And I'll show you an eye spot here. And we talk in one of the other videos about perception of eyes and how these aren't real eyes, they are perceived as eyes by other animals,
Mm-hmm.
as a predator deterrent. And so just someone said in the chat, and I'm not going to be able to scroll back and see who it was, but someone said in the chat, I love specimens, right? And I think this is a great example of how you can use a specimen that you have and you can talk about that specimen in a different way, right? So there's a lot of different ways to teach about entomology, and we've done like all of them. Like when we were TAs in grad school, there's a way to teach about entomology. When we were making videos for Texas A&M University, that's a way to teach about entomology. There is a style of teaching where you just sort of teach the content, right? Or the concepts. You go, well, this is an arthropod, and this is, an arthropod has this, and these are the characteristics, and this is what's happening.
It's fact after fact after fact after fact.
Exactly. And Jessica and I like to mix fact with cultural stories about bugs. So cultural entomology from other cultures and past cultures, and how bugs have shaped human evolution and human religions and human faiths and human cultures, and how we really move through the world. And the fact that bugs have shaped our lives through commerce. If you think about the silk trade, and if you think about trading of spices with silk, and how that changed the landscape of human history. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm getting like really excited and I'm starting to get sweaty about it. Okay, so this is the way that we love to teach. We love to use bugs as a model to talk about lots of different things. So after we have shared these concepts, color without pigment, misunderstood, we have one called blending in, where we talk about crypsis and camouflage of walking sticks. You can see my walking stick right there. Very guinea. And then we will sort of flip the script a little bit, and then we'll go, like, for blending in, one of the examples is, after we've talked about how these animals will blend in to get away from a predator, or they will blend in so that they are not seen, like some praying mantises can blend in and they are a predator, right? There's different ways that crypsis and camouflage is used. We'll then ask students, and these are mostly, I would say mostly high school students or middle school, high school, have you ever blended in so far that you felt like you disappeared? What if you blend into a group and that group does something that you don't agree with? Do you feel like you can speak up, or are you going to like blow your cover in the group? Because these are things that students are dealing with day in, day out. And it's not so clear, it's these constant little social interactions that are happening, that are shaping people in the same way that parents are shaping students, and experiences are shaping students, and we are even shaped by these experiences as adults. Like, it doesn't stop when you finish high school. Like, everybody is shaping each other all the time, and these social experiences and how we view them and how we deal with things, and it really has an effect on all of our lives. And so that's the real beauty of this curriculum, is that it works with triangulation, right? So instead of asking students, I don't know how many of you work with students in schools, but one of the things in schools is taking, like, what color are you on the mood wheel right now? Like, trying to get kids to identify their mood. This is for younger kids. And or like, where are you on the temperature scale right now of anger or whatever? And the kids get real spicy with it. They get real irritated with this kind of stuff, because it also feels like the students are then underneath a microscope. And what we found is, if we're doing this work with bugs, like, let's put the bug under the microscope. Let's ask questions about the bug. Let's ask question about the way this animal is making it through the day. Because if we zoom in and look at the intricacies of this animal, and then we can zoom real far out and we go, look, humans, we're trying to like make it through the day, right? Bugs are trying to make it through the day. We're not so different, but we have some real interesting differences, but also we're not so different. That's where empathy builds. In the beginning of a workshop with us, when we say we're going to bring out our tarantula Beyonce at the end, you will hear from high school students. We were teaching, there were hundreds of high school students in this one assembly we were doing. And they were like, ew, gross, kill it with fire. All these memes that you hear on the internet, they were saying it out loud. Kill it with fire. I'll stomp on it. I'll kill it. All these things, right? And it's all posturing. It's all fear and like trying to mirror other students. It's like it's
and
like
like
a whole,
trying to look, you know, big and cool.
yeah, because they might be a little uncomfortable about what's going to come out and how they're going to feel. And because tarantulas are big and hairy and they don't know, they maybe don't have that much experience with them. And then by the end,
or what they've seen off of media,
horrible
so much
media with dripping things. Don't get me started on dripping things in nature programs and like creepy music, right? By the end, we are bringing her name's Beyonce. She's a curly hair tarantula and she's fabulous. We bring Beyonce out and we will take her silk from the microscope, and we'll do this for you at the end if you'd like us to. Take her silk and you can pull the silk out and you can see the silk coming out in a strand. And one of my most favorite teaching moments we ever had, Jess, was when a student went, does that hurt her? And we stopped the program. We were like, what did you just say? The student said, does that hurt her? And I said, what is that? And then another student said, that's empathy. And I said, and Jess and I were like, at the beginning of this talk, 45 minutes ago, you wanted to kill it with fire and you wanted to stomp on it. And now you are concerned that us pulling the silk out of this tarantula will hurt her. If that's not transformation in an hour, I don't know what is. But you have to call it out when you see it.
Yeah.
And you have to say, this is good. This is awesome. Whenever you are feeling scared, whenever you are feeling stressed about something, the more you learn about something, it will turn fear to fascination. And once you are in fascination, anything can happen. And it is our job as educators, and it is our job as stewards of the planet, of our own communities, or if you take it on a more global scale, it is our job to be that bridge from fear to fascination, to facilitate that transformation. And really, that's the work that we do now. And it makes me like, don't let me cry on this TSN webinar. It'd be so
shut it down, Reddick. Shut it down.
Tape it down. But yeah, that's the work that we do. And we have more slides and things, but we have a couple questions. And, you know, I want to do one last thing. Are you ready for this, Jess? I think this is important.
Yeah.
I think our last bit is maybe really important for this group. So if you have any questions about our different curriculum, it's super awesome. But I do want to talk about this, that each and every one of you is making an invisible impact on someone in your life, and you have been impacted by someone in your life in a positive way. And sometimes we impact people in a negative way, but and we need to take responsibility for that. But I'm talking about these positive invisible impacts. Do me a favor and thank someone who made a positive impact on you to do the kind of work that you are passionate about doing right now. And when I say work, I don't mean just paid work. I mean the work that I mean like soul work, right? So if you are volunteering, if you are not getting paid for the work that you are doing, if you are retired and you are doing this work, it's work. But someone made an impact on you. And if you can, reach out and say thank you. Because there's a researcher that we work with. Her name is Dr. Ro Ruiz, and she's the coolest person you've ever met. And she has her PhD in the science of awe. What? And she talks about how in cognitive neuroscience, she says that emotion ties the knot in learning. And if you're talking about, like, you are the stewardship network, right? If you're talking about a net, and yes, I'll put in a bug net here. If you're talking about, if we zoom in and we look at a bug net, if you're talking about being a network, like emotion ties the knot in learning. Do not be afraid to be a human being in your conservation work with other human beings. And if you feel like you are working with the same kinds of people all the time, or maybe you want to provide, you want more diversity in the people that you're working with, or you want to provide access to experiences for other people, there are other people who are already working on their networks.
Yeah.
And so it's our jobs to raise other people's voices as well. And it's our jobs to raise voices that honestly don't get amplified enough, to create and provide access to experiences for people who might not have that for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And so, Jess, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I was going to throw in that, like, you know, the nature space and the stewardship space, it's a really diverse area, right? There's a ton of things to do. There's a ton of different ways people can help and make an impact, no matter how big or how small. And we need to make sure that we also have, you know, people of all kinds doing this work with us, to help make access to these experiences an authentic one.
Yeah. And so for the network, whether it's the stewardship network or our network as entomologists or educators or whatever, like, you make the network. And I thought that was like, we are the answer to the apathy that we have. I know that sometimes even I feel apathetic, and that is terrifying to think of, because Jess, would you say that I am an apathetic person?
I would not say that you're an apathetic person, but you have to think too that, like, you know, as human beings, all of us are experiencing burnout and overwhelm and just an influx of information, good and bad. And it's hard on us too.
Yeah.
You know, so that network strengthens all of us.
Yes, absolutely. That's a beautiful way to end that, Jess. I love that. All right. So this is us. If you'd like to get in touch, we would love to hear from you. If you're interested in hearing more about our different curriculum or our upcoming new program called Own the Room, where we teach people how to be excellent informal educators in any space with any audience, please talk to us about that. We would love to hear about it. And for now, I would love to stop sharing and answer some questions.
Wow. What a presentation. Geez. Thank you both so much. That was really powerful. And the tears, we are not unfamiliar with the tears at the Stewardship Network. We had a couple pretty emotional conference keynotes this past year that were really, I mean, and it's important to bring your full and uninhibited selves to the work. And so I just really want to name that and appreciate you both for being here and being vulnerable with us and sharing your great work. It's so wonderful. So I guess getting in a high level question, and I want to encourage folks to share your questions in the Q&A as well. And I know we do have a few in there now, but looking at the high level, I'm thinking about the associations that we have with some of these bugs, biophilia versus biophobia. There are certain reasons why, like valid reasons why humans have developed fears of bugs, and then there are totally not valid reasons why, and you talk about the media and all those things. So I'm kind of curious how those two concepts fit into your, you know, your approach. And obviously I see it, it's directly addressing biophobia through positive experiences with, you know, organisms that people may be afraid of. But I just was curious about that at a high level, how you balance those two concepts and how they integrate within your work.
Yes, Absolutely. And you bring up a really great point, especially in this time of social media around invasive species as well, and like lanternfly and things like this. So because we're getting, they're not mixed messages, but for people who don't understand the nuance of, you know, invasive or introduced versus native, there's all sorts of different shades of what's going on. One of the things is people have had bad experiences with bugs, and there are bugs that are not what we call bug chicks approved to touch. Also, we're pretty clear with people, like, just because you've been through a bug chicks workshop doesn't mean you can just go out and like scoop up anything. Like, please don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, let's be respectful of these animals. Like, they're, again, trying to make it through the day, and you were not on their list of things to mess with today. And also, and I'll say this, there are cultural differences around arthropods, and really learning to be cognizant of that and listening to that and be respectful of that is important. And sometimes there's going to be misunderstandings and you're going to slip up a little bit, and just being able to really check yourself as an educator and listening when people are saying, when they have a really strong emotional reaction to something, having the patience to just listen. And sometimes as an educator, it's hard because you don't have time to listen to everybody's when I was 5 story. Like, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
But understanding that that listening to that and going, I understand. That sounds scary. That sounds terrifying. It is important. And you can bake that into the work. And sometimes you can get out ahead of it a little bit too, especially if you can tell that there's going to be like a charged emotional situation. Get out ahead of it a little bit as an educator.
Yeah. And I think explaining, when it comes to some of the people that we teach, some people don't like things because they might be hurt by them. And I think that, you know, part of this is from not knowing about that animal, and part of it is from, you know, some of the more negative input that we get from everywhere. You know, and I think that letting people know and teaching people about like why a bug is doing what it's doing is also, it gives them context for why it's behaving in a certain way around them. And it's like, okay, well, you're afraid of that wasp, and here's the deal: wasps are predators, and they're not going to eat you, and they're going to do this. So next time you see a wasp, maybe watch its behavior from a distance, from a safe distance. Like, don't mess with it. Watch its behavior and just see what it does. And I think that helps to settle people's minds as well, when they realize that it's not actually about them.
Give them a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Thank you. And gosh, we could go on forever. And I feel like in some ways I wanted to open it up in case you had additional thoughts about the lanternfly question, and just to restate for the folks in the audience, question about spotted lanternfly in terms of it becoming a problem. See it and squish it is the messaging that's getting out there. It's a real management suggestion, and yet the Humane Gardener has a great article about how that can be harmful to the human psyche. So I just wanted to open it up in case you had additional thoughts about that and that dichotomy.
Yeah.
It's a real tricky trickster, isn't it? Good Lord, because we've spent our careers teaching people like, don't step on bugs. And then we were just in a big Vox interview last year where we were like, yeah, you got, like, it's a problem. Like, what are you gonna do? So we offered some other alternatives. One of the things that you can do if you don't want to squish them, which I agree,
Feels violent.
I don't squish them. If I'm going to be really honest with you, I don't squish them. I'll collect them and I will put them into the freezer, because in a normal natural cycle during the winter, the adults would die anyway because they are poikilothermic, meaning they are cold-blooded, meaning they cannot handle the cold temperatures. And that is almost like an accelerated system for them anyway. So you just like brought winter early, right? In my mind, that's kind of like how I'm thinking about it. And then we will pin them as specimens and we can use them to teach. So yeah, Jess.
But I think that there's something to adding in, like what you said earlier, Chris, is how like people don't really understand the nuance between like smash this bug, but don't smash this bug, and like what are invasive species. You know, it's not like it's not making it clear that our message isn't, well, we also need to go to their natural habitat and fumigate until they're all dead. Like that's not the message. The message is they are great where they, you know, have co-evolved with this other plant. They are not causing problems to our food supplies. They're not causing problems, you know, to our economy. They don't belong here in terms of like evolutionary and biological places, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, making it clear that it's not that the bug is the problem, it's the where is the bug, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's powerful. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I saw
if we
a
could let them
question
live,
from
that'd be great.
yeah, but we can't because as climates change and as you know, we live in a very global society, and so we've been fighting with invasive species for forever. Like that's forever, but it's accelerated with human traffic around the globe. And so again, we are integral to the problem, which means we have to be also the solution. There was a comment up here from Lisa Brush. Talk to us about how schools and teachers react and stories you hear about impacts in the classroom after you're gone. If you wouldn't mind, can I share my screen just one more time? Would you mind, Rob?
I think that'll be our grand finale. That sounds good.
Okay.
So let me just really quickly.
Yeah. And while you're doing that, Chris, just preemptively, if you all have any questions, like burning questions that you want to send our way, like you can feel free to email us. We love hearing from people and answering questions. So feel free to drop us a line if we don't get to your question.
Jessica and I did in one of the first pilot studies that we did with the curriculum. The teachers love it, the students love it, the school districts love it. In the places where our curriculum is being taught, and it's being taught all over the country, and it's really teacher driven. It's like the teachers who are really taking it by storm and like using it in their classrooms. But we collect data from the students. And we do it with this visible thinking construct called I used to think, now I think. And so it's basically like a pre and post survey at the same time, because people lie on pre-surveys because they don't want to feel like idiots. And so if you just do a post survey, but you do it this way, it's really beautifully, you can really see the before and after. I used to think that most insects were harmful or pointless. Now I think they do a lot of good in the world and people just need to learn and understand them. This is the 6th grader. This is an 8th grader. I used to feel that people who think differently from me are correct in their own way. However, my way could be better. Now I feel there are learning opportunities to better myself and to help them better themselves. I used to think people who think differently from me are wrong or uneducated. Now I know there are many circumstances that lead people to feel and think a certain way that I will never be able to understand. Being able to have differences of opinion, but still be able to be civil is very important. And I am learning that. Elect this person. Like, what? Are you kidding? So that's sort of a tiny little smattering of, these are student responses. And yeah, I think it's working beautifully. Our big dream is to do this on a national scale. I want a mammal edition. I want a bird edition. I want a fungus edition. I want reptiles. I want it to be like the new Project Wild.
Yeah, a stewardship edition would be pretty rad.
Stewardship edition. This is the big dream.
The synergies, I'm seeing them. Oh my gosh.
So if anyone here knows how they could maybe direct us to make that big dream possible, because we want voices. I really believe that if you can see it, you can be it. We've had so many girls say, I didn't know I could grow up to study bugs. Yes, you can, but we need lots of different people, lots of different scientists to share all of the stories, and we want to produce this. So if you're interested in helping us produce, that's our little pitch. So
That sounds amazing to me. And thank you again. Yeah, so many interesting connections between these different disciplines, and the themes are relevant to all of them, right? I mean, the lessons we can learn from each other. And so once again, I want to say thank you both so very much. Thank you to everybody tuning in today. I just want to briefly hop in here and share a little bit about, from our current slide. We just encourage everybody to become a regular of these webcasts if you've enjoyed your time today. Coming up on the second Wednesday of every month in the Eastern Time Zone's noon hour. And you can register and we will send you a reminder the morning of the webcast. A few that are coming up soon. So Returning the Wild to the Wilderness, Loss, Legacy, and New Opportunity with Thomas Keller of the Pennsylvania Game Commission. We have Climate Change, Michigan, and the Bigger Picture. That's with Jeff Masters of the Yale Climate Connections. And we have Mice, Voles, Beetles, and Native Plants, a tour of their responses to management at Nachusa Grasslands, Illinois, with Catherine Hogan of Northern Illinois University. So thank you all so much. Once again, my name is Rob Luzinski with the Stewardship Network, and we hope to see you again soon. Take care.
thank you.
Thank you.